Today, we are venturing beyond the veil of ordinary understanding into a place few have dared to tread. This journey isn't only dangerous, it is also designed to test the limits of your courage. Because perhaps this is not fiction. Chapter 4. The Contact. For weeks now, Dr. Elara Quinn had felt an unsettling presence, something just beyond the edge of her perception, watching. It wasn't paranoia, but a subtle awareness. At first, she had dismissed it as the stress of her work, but the deeper she delved into the anomalies, the more the feeling grew. It was as though her research had pulled her into something far larger than she could grasp. The energy surges she had been tracking were no longer random. They were too precise, too deliberate, and as her computer continued to chart the spikes in activity, she saw a pattern emerging. Someone or something was reacting to her work. She sat back, staring at the screen. "Who's watching?" she muttered under her breath, her fingers tapping the desk. A strange sensation pricked at the back of her mind, like an answer on the tip of her tongue, just out of reach. Then her computer screen flickered. A surge of static buzzed through her equipment, causing her monitors to glitch momentarily before returning to normal. Elara's heart skipped a beat. It wasn't the first time something like this had happened. A few days ago, there had been power fluctuations across the entire lab, unexplained and seemingly unrelated to her work. Until now. Her eyes widened as the readings on her screen spiked once more. This time, the surge wasn't from the Earth's portholes. It was coming from above. A low hum filled the room, not from her equipment, but from somewhere else. The air seemed to vibrate with an invisible presence, and for the first time, Elara felt as though she was not alone. And she wasn't. "We have been watching you, Dr. Quinn." The voice was clear, yet soft, echoing in her mind as if spoken from a place beyond a physical space. Elara shot up from her chair, her pulse racing. The room was empty, but the voice was unmistakable, calm yet otherworldly. She looked around, heart pounding as though expecting to see someone step out of the shadows. There was no one. "We are closer than you realize." Her hands trembled as she reached for her phone, but her instincts told her no one would understand. This wasn't a simple glitch in her data. This was contact. Direct, undeniable contact. "Who are you?" Elara whispered into the stillness, her voice barely audible. There was a pause, and for a moment the hum in the room intensified. She could feel the presence surrounding her, as if the very air was charged with energy. The answer came not through sound, but through thought. An unmistakable impression that resonated deep within her mind. "We are the Watchers. We have always been here." Elara's breath caught. The Watchers. The term had floated through conspiracy theories for years, fringe beliefs dismissed by scientists like herself. But now, in this moment, Those whispers of myths and speculations felt very real. "We have guarded your world from threats far beyond your understanding," the voice continued, "and we have watched as you have drawn closer to the truth." Elara felt a strange calm wash over her. Despite the fear, despite the incomprehensibility of what was happening, there was a sense of familiarity to the presence, like an old friend finally revealing themselves after years in the shadows. "What do you want with me?" she asked, her voice growing stronger now. The response came quickly. "You are ready to understand. The work you have begun is vital to both your world and ours. You are close to uncovering the truth about the energy that flows beneath your feet, the portholes. You must continue, but you must also be careful. Others are watching you too. Others who do not wish for this truth to be known." A chill ran down Elara's spine. The Vornax, the ones her research had unknowingly disturbed. "The others," she whispered. "They're already here, aren't they?" "Yes," the voice replied solemnly and heavy. "They are closer than ever before. They seek to exploit what you are discovering. They will stop at nothing to claim the power of these portholes for themselves." Elara's mind raced. She had always been cautious, knowing her work was controversial, but this was on a scale she had never imagined. The voice softened. "But you are not alone. We will guide you. The time for our collaboration is coming, and with it, the chance to change the future of your world. We will make ourselves known to your people soon. You must be ready." The hum in the air soon dissipated, and the presence faded as if retreating into the unseen. Elara stood frozen, her mind reeling. It had happened. Actual contact. And with it a sense of responsibility she hadn't fully anticipated. Her research had placed her at the center of something monumental, something both exhilarating and terrifying. The Watchers had revealed themselves to her, but they were not the only ones watching. The threat of the others loomed larger than ever. For now, she would continue her work, but everything had changed. She wasn't just a scientist piecing together data anymore. She was part of something far bigger, a conflict that spanned the stars. Chapter 5: The Gathering Storm. The skies above Earth had never been quiet. For centuries, battles unseen by human eyes had raged in the void. Skirmishes fought in the darkness of space, just beyond the edge of human perception. And now, as the portholes pulsed with renewed energy, the tension had never been higher. We could feel it. The Vornax were mobilizing. In the expanse above, our ships hovered in formation, their sleek forms blending into the stars. We had spent millennia guarding this world, and though the humans were unaware, they were living on borrowed time. The energy that sustained their planet was coveted by forces far older and far more ruthless than they could imagine. "They are moving towards the southern porthole," one of us said, his voice sharp with concern. Our leader's gaze remained fixed on the glowing map in front of him. The southern porthole was one of the largest, an ancient site buried deep beneath the sands, connected to a web of other energy centers scattered around the globe. If it were to fall, the consequences would be catastrophic. "We must intercept," the leader said. "Prepare other fleets." As we moved to engage, the tension in the air was palpable. This was not the first time we had faced the Vornax, but it was the closest they had come to breaching one of the primary portholes. If they succeeded, the flow of energy would be compromised, and with it, Earth's balance. From our vantage point in the skies, we saw them, dark shapes emerging from the void, their ships sleek and angular, cutting through the atmosphere with silent precision. The malevolent ones had always preferred stealth, but this time they were more brazen. They were ready to take the fight to us. Our ships moved into position, forming a protective barrier around the southern portholes. The Vornax hesitated for a moment, as though assessing our defenses, before surging forward in a coordinated assault. The battle erupted in a flash of light, silent to those below, but fierce and unrelenting above. Energy pulses cracked through the air as our ships exchanged fire with the invaders, each side vying for control of the precious energy source below. But it wasn't just the skies that were in danger. On Earth, in the underground control center, Elara's hand pounded as she watched the reading spike again. Something was happening, something big. The portholes beneath the desert had been dormant for centuries, but now it was surging with a level of energy she had never seen before. She grabbed her tablet, her fingers moving frantically across the screen as she pulled up data from the other portholes around the world. Similar spikes were occurring at multiple sites, but the one beneath the southern desert was the most concerning. It was as though it had been triggered by an external force, something powerful. Her mind raced. Could this be the Vornax the Watchers had warned her about? She had seen strange activity before, but nothing like this. If the porthole was compromised, the energy grid that sustained the Earth would collapse. But what could she do? Her contact with the Watchers had been brief, but the message was clear. They were watching her, and they believed in her ability to help. But she was just one person, a scientist, not a soldier. How could she stop something like this? As if in response to her silent question, a soft chime echoed through the lab. Her eyes darted to the source, a small, unassuming device that hadn't been there moments ago. It was smooth and metallic, glowing with an ethereal blue light. She hesitated before reaching for it, her fingers brushing against the cool surface. The instant she touched it, a voice spoke in her mind, a voice she recognized. "Dr. Quinn, the time has come. We need you." The Watchers. They had left this for her. A tool. No, a key. A way to influence the portholes to protect them from the inside. Her pulse quickened as the voice continued, guiding her through the steps. The device in her hands hummed with power, connecting her to the vast network of energy flowing beneath the Earth's surface. She could feel it, as if the very life force of the planet was coursing through her fingertips. "Use it wisely," the voice urged. "You have the ability to stabilize the portholes, to prevent the malevolent ones from breaching the grid. But you must act quickly." Elara's mind raced. She had been thrust into a conflict far beyond anything she could have imagined. But now, with this device, she had a chance to make a difference. She wasn't just a bystander anymore. She was part of the fight. Taking a deep breath, she activated the device. Immediately, the room was filled with a soft, pulsing light as the energy from the portholes surged through her. She could feel the delicate balance of the grid. the way each porthole was connected to the others, forming a web of power that spanned the entire planet. But the Vornax were already at work. She could sense their presence, a dark, invasive energy pushing against the grid, trying to force its way through. The battle in the sky above was only part of the conflict. The real struggle was happening here, in the invisible currents of energy flowing beneath the earth. And she was the only one who could stop it. In the skies above, our ships clashed with the Vornax, the battle raging on as we struggled to maintain control of the southern porthole. But even as we fought, we could feel a shift, a sudden surge of power from below. It was Dr. Quinn. She was using the device. "She's stabilizing the grid," one of us said, astonished. "She's actually doing it." Our leader nodded, a rare smile crossing his face. We chose well. But the battle was far from over. The Vornax were relentless, their ships swarming around us in a desperate attempt to break through. We fought back with everything we had, but the strain was beginning to show. If Dr. Quinn couldn't hold the grid, if we couldn't protect the porthole, everything we had worked for would be lost. And so we fought on, knowing that the fate of the world rested not just in our hands, but in hers as well. Chapter 6. The Breaking Point. The energy surged through Dr. Elara Quinn's veins like a living thing, pulsing in time with her heartbeat. Her hands trembled as she focused on the device, struggling to keep the grid stable. The weight of the portholes, the ancient network that sustained the earth, pressed against her mind. Every second counted. Every decision had consequences. She could feel the Vornax pushing back, their dark energy clawing at the edges of the grid. It was invasive, corrupting like a poison spreading through the veins of the planet. The southern porthole was their target, and they were close, far too close. Elara gritted her teeth, her fingers tightening around the device. The Watchers had entrusted her with this power, but they hadn't warned her how overwhelming it would be. She wasn't just stabilizing the grid, she was becoming a part of it. Her consciousness woven into the very fabric of the energy lines that ran beneath the Earth's surface. For a moment, panic threatened to take hold. The portholes were ancient and vast, far beyond the understanding of human technology. What if she made a mistake? What if the balance tipped too far? But then she remembered the Watcher's words. "We believe in you." She wasn't alone. They were watching, guiding her just as they had for millennia. She closed her eyes, blocking out the chaos around her, and focused on the energy pulsing through the device. She could feel the southern porthole, its core trembling under the strains of the assault. The Vornax were throwing everything they had at it. "They're breaching the grid," she whispered, fear threading her voice. Suddenly the hum in the room intensified. Her equipment flickered, then dimmed as the dark energy of the Vornax surged forward. Her connection to the portholes weakened, the grid trembling under the onslaught. "No!" she breathed, panic rising. Above the earth, the battle raged on. Our ships swarmed around the southern porthole, intercepting wave after wave of enemy fire. But it was clear, we were outnumbered. The Vornax had called for reinforcements, their ships descending in droves, their dark energy rippling through the atmosphere. "They're breaking through," one of us warned, as another wave of enemy ships dove towards the porthole. Our leader narrowed his gaze. "We have no choice. We must hold them off. Dr. Quinn is our only hope now." Below, Elara struggled to maintain control. The dark energy was relentless, gnawing at the edges of the grid. weakening her connection with every passing second. Her hands shook as she fought to keep the portholes stable, but it was slipping away. Suddenly, a voice echoed in her mind, a familiar voice, steady and calm. "Dr. Quinn, you must not give in." Her breath hitched. "The Watchers." "We know this is difficult," the voice continued, "but you are stronger than you realize. The energy of the portholes is ancient, but it responds to your will. Trust in yourself." Elara swallowed hard, forcing herself to take a deep breath. Trust in yourself. She closed her eyes once more, focusing all her energy on the device in her hands. She could feel the dark forces closing in, their presence heavy and oppressive. But beneath the fear, beneath the chaos, she could sense something else, something deeper. The portholes were alive, not in the way humans understood life, but in a way that connected them to the very essence of the earth itself. They weren't just sources of energy, they were part of the planet's heartbeat, a pulse that had resonated for eons. And now, they were responding to her. Elara's pulse steadied as she reached out with her mind, feeling the energy lines beneath the earth. She could sense the other portholes spreading across the globe, all connected, all waiting. The grid was fragile, but it wasn't broken. Not yet. A surge of determination flooded through her. She wasn't just defending the portholes, she was part of them, and they were hers to protect. With a deep breath, Elara poured every ounce of focus into the device. The energy grid responded, flaring to life as the portholes aligned, their power surging through the network. The Vornax pushed harder, their dark energy swirling like a storm. But Elara held firm. Not this time. The room lit up with a blinding pulse of light as the southern portholes stabilized. The Vornax recoiled, their dark energy faltering against the strength of the grid. Elara's heart raced as the device in her hands hummed with power, the portholes feeding off her will, her resolve. Above the earth, the tides of the battle began to shift. "They're pulling back," one of us shouted. The malevolent ships, sensing the surge of power from below, hesitated. Their formation faltered as the energy from the portholes grew stronger, pushing against their dark forces. One by one, their ships retreated, disappearing into the vastness of space. Our leader stood tall, his gaze locked on a southern porthole. She did it. But even as the battle above subsided, Elara remained on edge. The Vornax had been pushed back, but they weren't defeated. This was only a reprieve, a temporary victory. They would return stronger and more determined. Elara opened her eyes, her breath coming in shallow bursts. The device in her hands flickered, the pulsing energy slowing to a steady hum. She had done it. She had stabilized the grid. But at what cost? Her body trembled with exhaustion, her mind overwhelmed by the enormity of what she had just experienced. She had touched the very core of the Earth's energy, felt the weight of millennia pressing against her, and survived. But this was only the beginning. The Vornax would return, and when they did, she would be ready.
Today, some of our fighters fell on the battlefield, but you made it out alive. You survived the first 6 chapters of my book. Well done. Now, before you leave, remember the importance of writing us comments, subscribing to the channel, and getting the ebook from the link below. Don't forget, we are watching you from beyond the stars.